Who are these sons of God? These sons of God seem to be disembodied supernatural beings. Now, some would go back, let's go back to Genesis 6. And they would say, well, Joel, in Genesis 6, there are a couple other options. There are a couple other options in Genesis 6 that these aren't supernatural beings. Like, no, we're not gonna talk about a supernatural worldview. How dare we? Like, no, we're not gonna talk about that. No, let's rationalize this. And so this would be one of the ways that they would rationalize it. They'd say, well, the phrase sons of God in Genesis 6, here's one of the interpretive options. It's called the Sethite view. The Sethite view. This argues that the sons of God in Genesis are actually descendants of Seth who are married to daughters of worldly men. So these daughters were actually from the ungodly line of Cain. Those that support this view refer to godly and righteous individuals, Psalm 73:15, Hosea 1:10, Psalm 80:17. But the problem is that this view is pretty unconvincing because it fails to take into account the fact that the phrase sons of God never appears in Scripture as a collective term for the Sethites. It doesn't show up. So how can we import a meaning into this phrase when that meaning isn't ever attested? It's never referred to. It's never shown. It's not restated elsewhere else in Scripture. It's an anomaly. Well, that's kind of difficult to comprehend. Meredith Kline, a brilliant scholar, said it this way. How then could it be possible that Nephilim, Gibborim, this is or the Gibborim, this is Genesis 6:4, these giants, how is it possible that they would be the logical conclusion, the logical offspring of two humans? Like, it just, again, it's incoherent. It kind of doesn't make sense. So the Sethite view, for me, it's just not convincing. Here's another view, the divine kingship view. So this view holds that the sons of God are actually sons of nobility who marry non-royal daughters. In fact, Meredith Kline defends this view. And he says, well, that this phrase, Bene Elohim, was actually appropriated in Genesis 6:1-4 as a designation for the antediluvian kings, these ancient kings of the past. And the way that Meredith kind of defends this is based on reading Elohim as judges, and he takes that from Exodus 21:6 and 22:68. Now, I have to say, this is a much better argument because we've got scriptural defense. We've got scriptural evidence that's present to suggest that, hey, there is now both, there's a correlation between these terms, something that the Sethite view doesn't have. But here's the problem. These specific judges are actually never called Elohim in these passages. And there's never a juxtaposition between Elohim and judges to create that definition. So that makes this view super unconvincing. There's also other challenges, like the Nephilim are actually said to be on the earth at the time of Genesis 6:1-2, which means they couldn't be the exclusive result of marriage between kings and non-royal daughters. There's just a timeline issue. And so this is where I just go back to, what is the most coherent view of the sons of God? What is the most coherent view that has scriptural evidence, biblical theological evidence, and is attested to in church history? I think it is that these sons of God are cosmic beings that are created by Yahweh that served in the divine council. So this view is actually affirmed by the New Testament, Jude 5, Jude 7, 2 Peter 2:1-10. These passages refer to these sons of God as angelic beings, as angels. And then the other thing is, again, coherence. Whatever we do with Genesis 6 and Psalm 82, and then Job 1 and 2 and 38, all of these decisions in some way have to bring coherence, congruity to each other.